Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I am Siddharth Zarabi, and with me today a very special guest, Romal Shetty, the CEO of Deloitte in South Asia. Romal, thank you very much for your time with us today. It's lovely to be here in your wonderful office in the city of Bengaluru, the tech capital of India. And I'm going to start off by asking you to take our viewers through where Deloitte India stands, because for the benefit of those who may not know, you took over this firm and are one of the youngest CEOs and heads in the professional services space just 8 months back. So how are things for you here?
Thank you, Siddharth, and it's lovely seeing you. Deloitte, of course, in India, just to give a context, Deloitte in India has about 120,000 people, of which about 27 to 28,000 people service the local markets, about 90,000 plus people serve the global markets as such. So nearly 25% of our global workforce of Deloitte is in India. So it's Deloitte India is a very strategic area for Deloitte globally, because we do work for our global clients across global transformation programs based out of India. And as as a country, I think this is one of the most exciting times to be in India, and I think as Deloitte, it's for us also a very exciting time because we have significant growth plans. We plan to sort of hire more than 40 to 50,000 people over the next 4 to 5 years. So it's fairly significant in our operations, and also Deloitte in India from a global perspective is, in the past obviously we've done great things overseas, and we've sort of implemented those. But now a lot of the innovation, a lot of the transformation is happening out of India, and that is something that is now being taken over globally as well to be replicated. So very exciting time, and to lead this firm and have the privilege of leading this firm is a really God-sent opportunity.
So viewers, Romal has a 4-year stint now, which is extendable by another 4, and I'm going to say all the best for that right away. But one of the key things that I want to take up, and you've given us several points to consider, but at that size of employee base, I'm just wondering, what's the wage bill that Deloitte has every year? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so I mean, Deloitte obviously, overall from an India perspective, like I said, there are 2 entities that service globally. So we have a wage bill of about 25,000 crores every year. So it's a fairly large wage bill. But more importantly, like I said, I think is about the impact that we are making to our clients across the world. I think that is the most important thing. That
the reason I asked you this was for viewers to be able to grasp the size of the operation, and at 25,000 crore and obviously growing, because Romal, you spoke about your hiring plans, 50,000 headcount addition in 4 or 5 years. I guess that would make you larger than many state governments. So here's an example of a private sector company which is adding so much value and jobs in the Indian context. Since we're talking about that, and you mentioned jobs, what are the key areas for Deloitte in terms of your India footprint? What's doing well for you in business terms?
We are actually doing well across all of our businesses: audit, tax, risk advisory, financial advisory, consulting. But few key areas that I think where we are sort of focusing on. One is everything to do with artificial intelligence. So we believe that the next round of growth and the next round of transformation is going to come with AI infused into different parts, right? Similarly, in terms of all of our digital and cloud technologies, because today companies are migrating into the cloud, but not from a just pure play cost perspective, but is really in terms of a business model change. That is what is happening with the cloud coming in. And of course, digital actually, one of the things that I'm really proud of India is that the India stack that India has built is world class compared to any country in the world. And I think we are also, as Deloitte, looking at that India stack of how we can change business models for our clients, and not necessarily only in the private sector, but also working with the government. So we also work with the government. The other bit is also in terms of cyber. Cyber is a critical area where with digitization becomes more vulnerable and there are more risks. So these are 3 or 4 areas where we're doing a lot of work. But with some of the new sectors coming in, especially semiconductors, space, clearly those are areas where we're also focusing on both in bringing in inbound investments into the country, as well as obviously helping capability build within India as well. Because that's the beauty of India. What's happening today is we're working on really high-tech industries, space, semiconductors, but we're also working, for example, in agriculture to see how do you bring agri-tech and therefore improve productivity, for example, in terms of the reach for our farmers, for our artisans. So on both ends of the spectrum, sort of Deloitte is actually helping.
Since you spoke about the India stack, UPI is now being pushed for adoption in some other countries as well. Is there a similar instance that you can relate where stuff that Deloitte India is doing is being exported, so to say, to the global sort of network of your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So both in terms of like the India stack and the UPI is now moving into Africa and some of the other countries. Some of the work that we have done in India, for example, in terms of digital infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, that is now also being taken to some of the other countries as well, South Asian countries as well as African countries. But even some of the developed countries are looking at UPI equivalents, for example, and a lot of the digital payments experience is actually coming from India.
Okay, and that's an important point. Let's get you to speak about your view on India from its economic perspective and also what is working for us, because you work with so many clients here. One of the things is the manufacturing story. In the recent past, we have seen a huge number of sort of companies go down the manufacturing path. There are celebrated examples and there are certain examples which are not so well known. So are we on the cusp of a very significant transformation when it comes to our capacity as a manufacturing destination?
Absolutely. I mean, as I talk to clients across, one of the things is, of course, China, and therefore everybody wants to have, in some sense, a China plus one strategy to ensure that they do sort of move. So as part of that, not necessarily everything is moving to India, but we see significant portions moving to India, especially where scale is required, because no other country in the world outside China can match the scale that India actually has. The second bit is also because of smart manufacturing. Now what's happened is the combination of software, the combination of electronics, and the combination of manufacturing coming closer together, which is a very sweet spot for India. So that ability now to manufacture at scale efficiently, more digitally, in smart factories, I think is also becoming a big element. So we see many companies, Japanese companies, for example, obviously the US, European companies, now really moving manufacturing operations into India. So that is a shift that is definitely happening. The PLI schemes, of course, have helped, but I think overall, 2 things, which is one is we have a domestic consumption, which is always a good thing, and we are not only dependent on an export market. So that actually helps. And the other element that I see is, one of the things that I have as a dream is that within South Asia, within Africa, while of course the global markets are there, you're talking about close to 3 billion people or 3.5 billion people. This is a big market, and some of this will grow over the next 5-10 years. So I think just the trade between this area is itself quite phenomenal.
And that growth will be at a far better pace than the rest of the world. Since we spoke about a couple of the issues, I just want to take up the example of telecom, and I don't know how many of our viewers know that you cut your teeth in some ways when the telecom sector was going through a rapid transformational growth phase in India. You spoke about GCCs and the fact that you have very significant hiring plans. In the IT services space, we are in the midst of a slowdown very clearly, and that is manifesting in various ways, including the most visible part is far lesser hiring. Yet you are going ahead and hiring so much. Explain why that is happening.
So I think one is, a pure play IT service to a model where we say that, can I make a business transformation, really? So I'll give you an example. So for example, we worked with a tire manufacturer, and one of the things was to see that, do I sell tire as a capex, 50,000, 60,000 rupees, or can I sell it as an OPEX where I can sell it per kilometer? Now, what does that mean, right? I mean, how do you actually do that? You can obviously go to the market and sell something, but how do you do it? With the advent of cloud technologies and IoT, you're now able to track based on the demographics, based on where exactly are you driving, your driving conditions, for example, the time of the day, you can figure out what would make sense. Now, technologically, it is possible to price something. So we are talking about a lot of business model transformations, which we are seeing no dearth of, right? Second is the Indian economy itself. A lot of the system integrators, for example, do a lot of work globally, but we do a lot of work in India as well. Indian companies are growing, and there's a thirst for real transformation, for real change in the way they deliver to their customers, the experience and the cost. All right. So we are not seeing any letdown in any business model transformation engagements. Digital, for example, AI, for example, these are really hot areas. So, in that sense, we don't see any stoppage. So we continue to hire, and even global SIs, which are slowing down a little, it's only a matter of time. It will bounce back, because less than 3 to 4% of the world is connected in some way. So we are talking about a massive, and with generative AI coming in and others, I think the opportunities for businesses to change is dramatic. This is the decade of, in some sense, really high-end tech that's going to happen, and this is the decade for India.
Are Indian companies preparing themselves and making the transformation where AI will deeply influence their businesses and make a fundamental transformation? Is India shaping up to the AI challenge?
Definitely. We see a lot more interest. That's the one area that in every board, there are 2 topics or 3 topics that are always spoken about. Generative AI, ESG on the environment, and cyber. 3 things that really are always talked on most boards. So some of the more progressive companies we are seeing doing a lot more. Some of them are still in the early infancy and journeys. But clearly, India Inc. is on the AI journey, and the most progressive ones are clearly much ahead.
In terms of the ability of Indian firms to work on solutions, the general impression is that the development has been led by companies and people in the United States, and we will only be either a consumer or an implementer. Is that correct, or do you see original work also happening in India in this field?
So it is true. I think if you look at innovation, for example, in technology, clearly the Silicon Valley, for example, has been at the forefront. But a lot of it has been done by Indians, right, or South Asians. So it's right. Well, of course, our companies may not have done it, but now we are seeing
it's people of Indian origin.
People of Indian origin. But now we are seeing that focus to say. That's why I said the India stack was completely done by India. GST, you take digital payments, that is all done by Indians, and these are fabulous innovations. So I don't see a reason why you will not see an Indian company come up with something new. As of now, it is true that a lot of the AI work has been done there, but lots of Indian companies are now building or trying to build large language models and things like that.
As an industry leader, what's your view on 2 aspects? One, the fear of job losses, and the other for regulating AI. Now, the Indian government has also spoken about in general terms, but what's your view as an industry leader?
So, traditional jobs done in a particular way will be lost. It is a fact, which are routine jobs will be lost. But AI, honestly,
what sectors? Sorry to interrupt you. What sectors would be impacted the most?
Services. Typically, a lot of the services which can be done, which is repetitive, can actually be done by AI. Some part of manufacturing also, a lot of that can be standardized. But in any technological revolution that has happened in the past, all right, it is only jobs that have increased. Actually, jobs have not actually decreased. So the traditional job will be done, but the augmentation of the human with, and we have a concept called human with AI, that is going to increase. So you need to have people have some capabilities and skills built in, and not let AI on its own. So that's the first thing. So I actually believe jobs will go up, just that the same set of jobs, a particular coding, for example, that could get eliminated. It will take some time. It's not that simple that this is going to happen overnight. It's moving very fast. The second bit is, as Deloitte, we have a concept called ethical AI. So AI has to be built with regulations, because that can be extremely dangerous if it is just let on its own. So the ethical AI keeps looking at all or responsible AI, looking at what are some of the effects, and we've got to look at 3-5 years down the line what could be the impact rather than just the particular solution. So it has to be regulated, allowing innovation to happen, but regulated, because the consequences of this going wrong can be far widening and far faster.
I recently spoke with Puneet Ranjan, who till recently viewers was the global head of Deloitte, someone who is known in business and industry circles across the world, a Haryana boy as he calls himself. And one of the things that he's been working on is trying to stop stubble burning in Punjab and Haryana, which causes massive havoc a couple of times every year. You are also associated with that.
Yes.
Tell us more.
So I was, I've obviously been lucky to have worked with Puneet both on stubble burning and COVID at the height of COVID in India. But stubble burning was something that we really, we have this thing called, we want to make an impact that matters. And this one has some serious issues. It's, of course, the air quality index, but it's also about the number of respiratory diseases, the sort of the years lost as well. It's quite significant, and even in terms of from a image across the world as well, it's not a great thing. So what we said is that as Deloitte, we are like an orchestra, right? Trying to bring in different kinds of solutions to solve a problem, and this problem was not going to be solved only by Deloitte. Absolutely. So what we really looked at, and I worked very closely with Puneet, and what we really did is we looked everything from satellite imagery to say when does the field be ready for the harvesting, to basically do a change management with the farmers. The farmers said, this is all nonsense, this thing that you're saying, because of us all the pollution is happening. So doing a lot of change management with them in their language. Right? We had jingles in the radio in Haryanvi. Right? We had a caricature, digital caricature, talking about the ill effects of this. But getting their buy-in was very, very important. So that was the most important thing, including taking a lot of the panchayat members, Mahila panchayat members, because one of the things we found very interesting was people listened to Mahila panchayat members more than others.
Oh, wow.
They made a real difference. Then basically saying that the problem was that a matchstick 50 paisa was enough to burn all that stubble, but this would take a lot more effort, and the balers would cost 15 to 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs, right? So we said that can we do an Uberization, where we build an Uber model, just an Uber app, where you can rent it, because you only use it for 9 to 12 days in a year.
And you don't want it sitting for the rest
You don't want
of
it sitting
the year.
there. So between the various India's small and marginal farmers, so between them, they log into the app and then book the Uber in terms of the baler machine, that they use it for 6 to 9 days and pay whatever specific rent. And then we tied up with Indian Oil to say, can we take the stubble and make it ethanol? So we built an entire ecosystem, and today, there was a space imagery of NASA took a space imagery of Haryana and Punjab, and you can clearly see the one way we look at it is the number of fires reduced. So one was Haryana was clear, that image, but our own, and it's a code certified thing as well, where close to 70% of the fires got reduced in Haryana. Whereas if you look at neighboring places, 20 to 30% fires actually increased. So things like that, or so that's also something very close was anemia. It's not spoken too much about. India loses, Niti Aayog says that India loses $45 billion in productivity due to anemia. And anemia we're aware that, okay, hemoglobin. The issue is also that it causes long-term damage to your organs. Absolutely. And many people, and people believe it's a rural problem, it's actually as much an urban problem. One of the interesting things that when we say as Deloitte, what do we do? And the government's been really trying to ensure that this happens, the anemia Mukt campaign actually is very specific. It sort of helps. But they were not able to change. So there, for example, we did a couple of things. One was to understand from the blood samples, do some real data analytics to figure out what is happening. I mean, because the normal thing is take an iron supplement, right? You take an iron supplement and then you'll become okay. But we found that there's some other problem. Interestingly, our data analytics indicated worming that was leading to loss of blood, right? So then you're very specific with your intervention. The second is, for example, we started working with the children at home, because the children, interesting, like I told you, the Mahila Panchayat, the mothers listen to the children, and the children would say that. So we created a caricature called Chutki. Now, Chutki was there on everybody's mobile phone to say it would also give you nudge. We use nudge technology, which is used in retail. So when you're going around to,
yes, absolutely.
right? We use nudge to ask them to take a hemoglobin, take a iron pill or whatever, and do things for the whole family, where you cook something which is for the whole family, which helps. So some of those things, within 7 weeks, we got people out of what we call as the emergency levels of hemoglobin, out of the emergency levels, right? Normally you don't increase your hemoglobin levels so fast. It's not possible. But it's also because deworming, communication, change management with them, right? So all of those things. So as Deloitte, that is something that we're very passionate about, that are we really solving some issues, or we're just doing some good things? Because we've got to make our country competitive. We've got to bring in FDI, as Deloitte we believe, because that's important. The purpose is very important, and we try to keep putting this thing of purpose. I mean, again, I'll give you another example. We do work for Uttar Pradesh government, where we're helping them from a 240 billion to 1 trillion economy. So a lot of our young kids, after office hours, want to contribute to that engagement, because they believe that if they can do something there, where Uttar Pradesh, if it increases even 5-10% GDP increase, that will bring a lot of people out of poverty levels.
Absolutely.
So things like that, people are really passionate about it, and as a firm, you want to do those things as well, really, because that will make an impact on India.
Romal, I wish you all the very best for continuing to make impact and leading the transformation of not just Deloitte, but having an impact across the broader Indian economy, an economy that is growing fast and is carrying along the aspirations of 1.4 billion people. Romal Shetty, as always, a pleasure talking to you. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. I enjoyed it very much, viewers, talking to someone who has such a broad overview and specific sectoral insights into India or Bharat. I hope you have also enjoyed it. If you've been, thank you very much for watching. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.